Hey everybody, my name is Garrett. I'm with Morrison Garritano. I'm a risk advisor here. Today, we're going to be diving into the realities of workers' comp in construction, from hiring challenges to technology to compliance and emerging risks. And we're going to be having a conversation with a very special guest. His name is Zadok Reid. You can call him Z. He has a lot of experience in the construction world, a little bit over 20 years total. He's worked on everything from residential to light commercial projects to maritime. He's been with Berkshire Hathaway since 2011. He holds his CSP and CHST designations with a focus on serving clients all throughout Southern California. So definitely excited to have a conversation with him. Z, if you wanted to add anything else and say hello.
Hello, everyone. That was perfect. So I don't really have too much to add to that. I do enjoy my job as an occupational safety and health professional, and hopefully more folks will jump into the field because we do like keeping people safe and saving companies money at the same time.
Absolutely. Well, Z is a loss control specialist, and so he has a lot of insight into today's trends. Before getting into it, I wanted to ask you just an overall question, Z. What's one thing right now you think most people misunderstand about workers' comp insurance?
There are a lot of different views of workers' comp insurance. I think employees themselves see those commercials on TV where someone gets hurt and then they get a pot of money and run out and buy a jet ski. But workers' comp insurance exists to get the employee back to work, so we want to pay the medical bills if there's any legal fees and things like that. But we want to make sure that the employee becomes healthy again and becomes a productive person in the workplace as they were. There's also a misconception from the employer side, especially here in California where it's a no-fault state. A lot of employers think it's an us versus them. That's the sort of mentality they have, that
Right,
OSHA's against us and employees are against us, when
right.
really their job is to provide a safe work environment for the employees so that they themselves can be profitable and productive. So the common misconception really is that workers' comp is a bad thing, that it exists to be a pot of money that anyone can just grab and abuse. Whereas really its purpose is to keep a safe working environment and allow employees to get back to work safely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Z. And, that really leads into the next topic of what I wanted to chat about with hiring and onboarding challenges in today's environment. Finding and keeping qualified workers, I believe, has always been a challenge, especially in construction. But from an underwriting and a risk and loss control perspective, how does that affect risk and the pricing, the premiums you're seeing?
Well, especially in construction, what we see is the pool is getting smaller. The talent pool is getting smaller. Uh, Many years ago, decades ago, when you went to school, there was a big push for trades. You had metal shop, wood shop, auto shop, things like that. They don't exist that much anymore. We find a lot of older workers working in the trades. And, when I see a claims review come through, sometimes I hear 55-year-old roofer falls or a 65-year-old framer gets injured. And you don't hear a lot about the young folks, the 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds. Even when I go to job sites, I see the same thing. So when construction accounts struggle to get good people in, young people in, refresh their pool of workers, it's going to reflect as well on some of those claims. A lot of these folks have been working in the industry for decades, and they may have bad shoulders, bad backs, or things like that, bad habits as well that can lead to those type of injuries, and we inherit them as employers and insurers. So it's something that it's jokingly called the silver tsunami, where a lot of
Right.
the older workforce are doing a lot of the high labor, manual labor type of jobs, and there isn't a real influx of younger people coming in to kind of replace them, which makes hiring really hard. And then
Mhm.
lastly, young people are coming in smaller amounts, but even as they come in, they may not have those skills necessary or the experience necessary. And that makes it rough for especially construction accounts and manufacturers and things like that are all vying for the same talented pool of employees that is shrinking.
And that's a really good point that I'm not sure many contractors are aware of or have noticed, but it is very relevant. To piggyback off of that, I had a question. What kind of red flags do you see when a client or company has a lot of turnover and hiring problems?
Well, to make your company attractive, when you're hiring folks and you want to get the good folks in, especially again, like I said, with that silver tsunami and a smaller pool of talented workers, smaller pool of younger workers, you want to make your company a desirable place to work. And that kind of goes back to that us versus them mentality. If an employee is there and they are being onboarded onto your company or just being interviewed into your company, and it seems like it's just a mill, bring a person in, bring a body in, put them on the roof, put them on a framing, something like that, they're not going to feel like they're part of a family. For a company, when they hire good workers and make their company themselves attractive to those workers, we see that. We notice that. We notice companies that have strong safety cultures and build their company into something that people want to work for. They're very desirable. And if they don't have that, that becomes a red flag. If we walk out and we're talking with them and it's always, oh, these employees, they're this, they're that, we're like, you hired them, what are you doing? So we usually find, especially speaking with employees, and this is well known, that the number one reason an employee is disgruntled at their job or leaves their job is their immediate supervisor. And also the number one reason an employee loves their job is their immediate supervisor. So it could be hard work. They could be on a roof 8 hours a day in the hot sun. They could be pouring concrete from 6 a.m. in the morning. But if they have good supervisors that they like to work with, good crews that they like to work with, they're going to be less apt to allow safety to fall by the wayside. They're going to remind their coworkers, please don't do that. Please don't take shortcuts. You know what? This is a good place to work. Let's not jeopardize it. We love working here. And if we don't see that, if we are an insurance carrier and we're looking as we interview, as we do our safety consultation walks, and we see this sort of we don't want to cater to employees, we don't think of employees as anything but numbers, that is a huge red flag for us.
That makes sense. And thanks for sharing Z on that as well. And yeah, it really is mutual respecting, creating a work environment for your employees that they want to be at every day and do the right thing. The next question I have in this topic of hiring challenges is, what examples have you seen of clients investing in training and safety practices?
Oh yeah, that's a good one. You heard about incentives, and a lot of folks will say, oh, we have incentives, but it depends on the incentives. That's a good way to go. But Cal OSHA and Fed OSHA, they will tell you they don't want incentives based on losses because that discourages reporting and that could hide actual incidents where employees don't want to get penalized for injuries or incidents, so they don't report them. Rather than that, they want to see above and beyond behavior. So a lot of the companies that we work with, the way they invest in incentives and try to incentivize employees to have a good workplace and things like that is to do above and beyond recognition. So if an employee has a great safety suggestion, or if an employee takes it on their shoulders to train a group without even being prompted and say, well, yeah, I've been driving forklifts and reach lists for 20 years. I see some new folks here and they made a slight error. Let me pull them aside and talk to them. Recognize that employee. A pat on the back goes much further than negative disciplinary procedures. And then of course you have the things like pizza parties and lunch parties and things like that, but
Right.
employers are beginning to get more and more creative with it.
Yeah.
So a couple of employers I work with, what they did is they designated uh, their groups of crews to have teams like football team names. So you had the Rams, you had the Raiders, you had the 49ers of California, so they mostly picked those teams. And
Hmm.
so these groups of 4 or 5 employees, they would all vie for 3 months, for the quarter to see who was best in not only production and quality of the work, getting the work done timely and things like that, but how cleanly they kept their work trucks. And then, of course, safety. Who made the most safety suggestions? Who were the quickest when returning their inspection reports? And then all of that tied in, and then the leading team would get recognized. It was either monetary, or they get to pick the special lunch, or they get more time off. Little things like that went a long, long way. So recognizing good behavior and using positive disciplinary procedures, that's really going to go a long way with employees. And that's going to definitely help, when companies invest in that type of training and go that way, that helps with the morale and the safety culture as well.
Absolutely. So thanks for sharing a couple of those. Segueing into the next topic that I know you're very knowledgeable on is Cal OSHA compliance and common violations that are happening right now. Um, for compliance, what are some common Cal OSHA violations you're seeing with your construction policy holders in 2025?
Oh, good question. What they usually talk about, or what they usually look for, is what you will see in either the OSHA 10 or the OSHA 30 hour. So anyone who's had those courses know that they focus on things like falls, struck by, and caught in between, those type of incidents. Falls continue to be the number one leading loss driver in terms of death for construction. For all industries, it's, usually it's motor vehicle accidents followed by workplace violence and then falls, but for construction, it still remains falls. So when Cal OSHA or Fed OSHA goes out to a site and they have a list of, what they're going to go through, they'll look for specifically whatever reason they're out there, either a complaint or a sweep or for an accident. They'll look at the reason they're out there, which could be someone fell off a ladder, but then they're going to look at some other things and follow up on that as well. Those are usually programs. So what we see is typically it's going to be falls are going to be in there somewhere. And then some of the programs like IIPP, which is your injury illness prevention program, HIPP, which is your heat illness prevention program, and recently your workplace violence prevention program they're looking at. When COVID was a big thing, that was a big citation. But the falls, anything to do with ladders especially, that's a big thing. And then struck by incidents, that's another one that comes in there. And then of course some of your material handling issues, so again with the struck by, but improper lifting, lack of proper PPE, and bad fall protection, things like that. What I always tell our employers, because it changes a lot, is I say, don't be afraid of Google. Google is your friend. But also don't be afraid to call your local safety consultant, be it from your agent side or from your insurance side, and say, what should we be worried about? Employers are smart. They know their trends. They can review them and say, we know how many people are falling and we know how many people are getting struck by things. Your trends likely mirror what Cal OSHA is out in the field and citing on, because they also know what the trends are. So those are typically what we see: falls and safety programs.
Yeah, and I think something that Z just mentioned is really important to remember is that the loss control, risk control specialist that you're assigned to, your local specialist, think of them as an employee of your team. They're
Yeah,
really there to help you and strengthen the work environment, safety culture.
absolutely.
Z, off what you just said, which of those violations is usually the most costly in terms of claims and as well as the violation itself, the fine?
Typically, it is falls, and lack of fall protection. So if you don't have a strong fall protection safety program, if the employees are caught without their personal fall arrest systems, the harnesses or the things are not adjusted correctly, their lanyards have tears, rips in the stitching. Kalisha is easily going to catch that. Those are the more expensive fines. They're also the more expensive losses that we find. So you can you can get a little bit high with sprains and cumulative trauma injuries as well in terms of claims, because those are soft tissue injuries that require a long time to heal. You have a lot of rehab, you have a lot of hospital visits and things like that. But for single or what we call specific injuries, falls still are the lead, especially if someone falls from height and injures their neck, their head, their upper back, their lower back, things like that. People could be quadriplegic, paraplegic, they can have brain injuries. Those are typically the most expensive. And again, those are some of the costliest OSHA citations when it comes to what they're citing would be lack of fall protection.
And would you say that you have practical steps or action items that you can give to a contractor to avoid some of these violations and pitfalls?
Well, yes, OSHA requires the minimum. When you look at OSHA requirements and their regulations, they're looking for the minimum. So they'll say now, of course, as of July 1st, it's a 6-foot fall protection for residential construction, light commercial, or when I say residential construction, roofing and framing. And then, there's different trigger heights for commercial, iron busters and folks like that. So OSHA will make that the minimum. And then if we go out and we see an employer is kind of hemming and hawing and just trying, we just want to do the minimum. That's another thing that concerns us. But if we see an employer that they say, well, across the board, we're going to provide fall protection and fall protection training, and we're going to be out there inspecting our job sites and making sure our employees are safe, that's a good thing to see. And that's what underwriters want to notice as well. We're not auditors. Our loss control, when we go out, we're supposed to work with our insureds and help them get up to speed, not only to avoid OSHA citations, and follow the regulations, but to make sure employees are safe. Ultimately, that saves the insured money because they're not paying a lot of money in high premiums based on high X mods and high losses. It saves the carriers and the agents money because any money we're getting in premium is not going out the door to pay claims. And it actually saves the employees a lot of money. So when underwriters are asking, what do we look for as loss control reps, and they go out into the field, it's that culture. It's how the safety management team or the ownership of the company is trying to make sure that the company, when I say go above and beyond, just exceed OSHA's minimum expectations. What are they doing that shows that they're investing in the safety of their employees, investing in their safety culture, and working with us, the broker and the insurance carrier, to create a safer working environment for employees.
Absolutely. And I think, Z, I'm starting to see a trend really here of it's not just about the risk control document. It's not just about the leadership. It really is about the buy-in of the employees and having a safety culture where everybody is together involved.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Yeah, if they can make it like applicable to the employees, they'll see a difference, where it's not just a pie in the sky type of, hey, we want to reach this goal, no losses for the entire year. Employees, they want to work safe. They know how to work safe. Make it practical, make it applicable, and help the employees stay safe.
Z, the next topic I wanted to move into is technology for risk mitigation. There's a lot of technology out there right now, a lot of new technology, and it's playing a very big role in job site safety already. How are you seeing Berkshire or your insureds use technology to prevent injuries in the workplace?
Good question. Yeah, technology, it goes quickly, it goes fast. You can have technology and it kind of just slides into your lifestyle. And then from there, it actually slides into the workplace as well. So a lot of employers, for example, that use GPS tracking on their vehicles, automated braking, speed limiters, things like that, or even computers that will help them route trucks and vehicles so that they're in less high traffic situations, which makes them more prone to accidents. So there's little things like that. Almost everyone has a smartphone and a tablet, and apps are being developed daily to help. And not only are the apps just, checklists anymore, but they can plug and play. You put something in like a photo, and it will actually show you what can be wrong on the job site just by taking that photo. You have access now to a lot of the OSHA regulations on the phone by just showing something like a frayed rope, and you can say, with use of AI, for example, what should be done? What are the steps to take? Not just the regulation. What are the steps that I should take? How should I train my employees on this? So you have a lot of information through AI and actual digital sources that can help, computers and things like that. And then the practical side of new types of technology. Recently, I got the new Class 2 helmet, the hard hat. And at first, when I walked on the job site, people were looking at me strange and say, "This guy a mountain climber," the way it sits with the straps and stuff. Now, more than half of the folks I see are wearing that type of helmet. And again, CalOSHA will eventually move to where that's going to be the type of hard hat that you have. Safer, more comfortable, has integrated safety equipment. Ladders. There are several step ladders or podium ladders, painter's ladders, as some people call them, that have locks on the back. So when you stand on the top step, which doesn't allow you to go to the top two steps anymore, it's cut off to a platform, hence platform ladder. It actually has a locking gate behind you. So even if you step backwards by mistake, let's say you were painting and you lost your balance, it helps to prevent you from falling over. Even the base of the ladders are getting a little bit wider, even though they can fit in the same spaces. So there's a lot of practical applications, new technologies. They're not that expensive. Spend a little bit of money. In the long run, if you avoid one claim that is, 60, $70,000, that dings your X mod a couple of points, and your X mod, your experience modification, which is basically the driving record for your company, sticks with you for 3 years. If you have a poor X mod, you're paying extra money for those 3 years. That extra money could have gone to better equipment, better people to hire, raises, and stronger bidding in the process, especially for construction. So spend a little money up front on the proper equipment, PPE, and tools, especially if they're on that forefront, that new technology. Search that out, look for that. And then that will prevent you from having losses and spending more money in the long run.
Make the investment. I really think that, what you said, Z, about making the investment, the margin of what it is to invest in the safety equipment, purchasing $2,000 of good ladders is really going to be worth it, to prevent that potential $40,000, $50,000 claim. A lot of this technology is new, but have you seen any success stories yet where the technology directly reduced claim frequency or severity?
Yes, and it's new. It's in the new stages. So it's hard to say what affects claim severity and things like that, but there are things like we mentioned with fleet management. So we had a couple of accounts that were large fleet management companies, and they had trucks that would do automatic braking, and they had those systems on those trucks, which prevented a lot of rear end collisions. And of course, the trucks during driver's safety training, we're supposed to drive in basically the truck lanes. But every once in a while, because of the weight of the truck, and if the employee drove their personal car to the site and then hopped into a two-axle, 40,000 pound truck, it changes them a little bit and they may not brake as quick. So that autonomous braking system that this employer was using on their trucks definitely did help out. And then there were the other systems that we noticed, just like I was talking about early with AI, where a company has a system where they do their checklist on the laptops or the iPads that they have with them. Right there, once they're going through and taking photos of the correction items, from there, it actually generates the safety meeting protocols and the safety meeting standards so that when they go back into the training room and right after they do their walkthrough, they have that information right there. The pictures pop up and they're able to show, okay, Ryan was doing this and he wasn't using the right equipment, but Ryan, you told us why, and so we're going to make sure that we don't do that in the future. Susie was doing this and that looked really good. We're going to try to do that method as well in the future. So again, they're tools and they can be specific to helping different employees work together, or they help the company as a whole explore it and use it. But yes, we have seen it and lots of success stories out there.
That's great to hear, and great to see that you're seeing a lot of policyholders utilizing it. And just really want to reiterate what you said, that it's new. There's a lot of that technology out there, and definitely advise to look into it and see what technology you can use to help create a safer work environment. Last real topic I wanted to bring up to you is a very relevant and important one in today's work comp. Cumulative trauma claims, just overall macro trends of workers' comp. Looking at the industry as a whole, Z, what trends are you watching in workers' comp specifically for construction right now?
Just like you said, cumulative trauma, or we call it CTs, cumulative trauma trends. As we mentioned before, falls are still the leading type of loss, highest loss driver, and things like that. Falls can be prevented. That's something that drives us crazy, is because typically when we go out and we see a fall and we do the incident investigation, we see exactly how it could have been prevented. With cumulative trauma, which are, of course, repetitive motion injuries and injuries that happen over time, typically a year on a claims form. With cumulative trauma, you're basically inheriting the body of the employee. And as I mentioned before, some of the employees in the older age range, they could be healthy as an ox. Some of the employees in the younger age range could be very unhealthy. But typically, older employees have a little bit more age on their bodies, especially if they've worked in the high hazard and the high manual labor industries for decades. So the CTs have been a lot more prevalent, especially post-COVID. We're still trying to figure out the exact reason, but some of the going theories are that people were, sitting around during COVID. They weren't out in the field as much. Even some of the essential employees, they didn't have to rush as much when they were out there. There wasn't as much stress while driving. They get back to the workplace post-COVID now, and people are coming back into physical work, and their bodies haven't really adapted yet. And you will see the cumulative trauma claims rising because people are trying to say, if you get one injury, a lot of that was resulted because of the entirety of your job here and there. So how employers can try to combat that, if possible, is understanding what cumulative trauma claims are, from force, repetition, awkward postures, static postures, contact stress, stress itself, weather, environment. All of that plays into an employee's cumulative trauma. If you can get stronger industrial ergonomics, adapting the workplace and the workload to the employee rather than the other way around, you can see a reduction in those CT claims. And then what we mentioned before is safety culture. Typically, if you're happy with a company and you like working there and you're happy with your boss, you and your coworkers are going to try to do your best to not make any waves, not take any silly shortcuts, not do something stupid like stand on a
Right.
rolling chair when just 2 feet away is a very good step ladder.
Right.
So having that good, strong safety culture, making your employees understand that you as management, you as supervisors work for them. Flipping that organizational chart and having the employees at the top of the tree and then saying supervisors actually work for the employees and say, what can we do to make your job better, safer, more efficient, get the work done faster without causing you much stress. Then they go to the management team and say, we need additional training. We need to have you look at the workloads for this group versus that group. We need more products. We actually need more actual physical tools to help them get this job done. And then those management team go to the owner and say, we have to look at this. We have to see how we can help the employees. If an employee sees that respect coming from the management team, they are going to want to work at that company for as long as possible. And they're going to help each other stay safe by following the safety rules and actually suggesting safety rules. Good communication where the entire company works together to solve some of those safety hazards and have better controls.
Right. And while it is such a big trend, a heavy trend we're seeing in the environment today, there is things you can do and action items you can put in place, whether it's ergonomics, good material handling techniques, wellness programs, and or just really getting your safety meetings more engaging. And Z, there's one last question I wanted to ask you here before letting you go. If you, Z, could give contractors one piece of advice to make themselves a more attractive risk to underwriters, what would you say to them?
I would say work with us, work with your insurance carrier, work with your broker. I can't count the amount of times in my 20 years that I've gone into an employer to do the initial meeting. And the first thing they do is they bring out their safety books and they're just bragging about how they have everything prepared. And these books are ANSI this and NIOSH that. And they're just going on and on. Then we do the tour and I see employees with unguarded machinery or standing on soap boxes or 5-gallon buckets that are upside down. They're not wearing their PPE, and I can see that disconnect. And if an employer is honest with us and says, we want your assistance, even if they're great, even if their employees are perfect and stuff, we want your assistance. We want to work with you because our goal is to keep these people safe. We will spend the money we have to because we know that's going to be a return on investment for us, but we want to keep our employees safe. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for employers who are actively looking to build a better culture and to build a better workplace. A lot of folks get lucky. They have the programs that are not implemented and they just don't have a lot of losses and they think they're doing fine. But that big loss can happen. Those frequency can happen because the safety just isn't there. And then we do see some companies that, yes, they have higher losses because they're in a higher hazard industry, but they're actively trying to control it. They're actively communicating. We would rather write that company that has the slightly higher losses, the frequency and the severity, because we know that they're working towards keeping their employees safe, than the one that's just riding on good luck and not having anything happen in the past few years. We know something bad could happen there. So open the door for us, show us, under the cover, the carpets, the back rooms, and say, is this safe? Can we fix this? How do we keep our employees safe? Because typically, if you see something that looks unsafe, it probably is, and we can assist you in taking care of that. So yeah, the number one thing we look for, both on our underwriting side and the loss control side, is employers who have a good mind and a yearning towards having a strong safety culture. And that word has been thrown around a lot. You guys have heard it a million times, safety culture this, safety culture that. But it's not actually as implemented as you would think across many companies. So do the work, make it fun, make it easy, whatever you have to do, communicating with employees and getting their involvement to make a good workplace which is in turn going to help safety, production, quality, and morale.
I love that. And especially what you said about working with the loss control consultant and your underwriter and your broker. Everybody here is on the same team, especially when it comes to safety. It's a partnership. Z, I
Absolutely.
really appreciate all of the topics that we were able to go over today and the knowledge that you shared, from technology in the workplace to trends and CT claims, the macro trends that we're seeing. I really believe that there was a lot of education in today's conversation. Z, I wanted to flip it to you to see if you had any final words.
Well, the final words is just, if you can, as a employer, enjoy what you're doing. There's a reason why you got into business. Enjoy what you're doing, but also understand that you want your employees to enjoy what they're doing as well. And we talk focused on safety, and we want them to be safe, but that encompasses everything really. So a happy employee will be a productive employee, a safe employee, and things like that. And they'll read that. They'll feed off of that if you as an employer respect your employees and want them to be safe and work with them as a coach, basically helping them in the areas that they need assistance, be it a safety violation or poor production or not even putting on their uniform correctly. You're working with them to bring them up to speed rather than just instantly penalizing them. So it sounds hokey, but be a good company, a company that people want to work for, and you're going to find that that just makes a world of difference in the results.
Thank you, Z. And thank
Okay,
you,
yeah.
everybody, for listening. I advise and welcome you to go to the Morrison Garritano website and sign up for our quarterly newsletter. We have a lot of relevant information and address a lot of the topics in the construction space today, not just workers' compensation. Z, thanks again for your time. And everybody, thanks for listening.
Thank you very much.